Welcome students to the next part of the module 2 of environmental studies. So now we're going to talk about the soil pollution. So the definition is that a contamination of soil by human and the natural activities which may cause harmful effects to living things. Human and animal activity generates many waste in daily or daily life and they discarded as useless and they are actually dumped on soil nearby and that actually cause soil pollution. The composition of soils are basically almost 45% inorganic minerals, organic matter 75%, water 25%, soil air is 25%. Now that is very important amount. That 25% of the soil composition is air. That is a very interesting fact. So basically, the term soil waste incorporates a highly heterogeneous mass, and that could be a different kind of waste like municipal solid waste, organic waste, biodegradable waste, bulky waste, combustible waste, hazardous waste, medical waste, chemicals, radioactive, and pathological. So that's basically everything whatever we use all when we throw it and that to the soil and that can cause the like soil pollution. The effect of soil pollution is like human lives. Basically, uh, soil first lose its fertility. So basically, before that, when it was like good or fertile land, after this you dump a lot of soil waste into the soil, it loses the fertility. Okay, the biodegradable waste decomposes under uncontrolled and unhygienic conditions can produce various insects and infectious organisms. The fertilizer quantity also important because you cannot use excessive amount of fertilizer on your land. There is a certain quantity or limit also with them. Then the soil waste runoff with the rainwater, then directly go to water, it also cause water pollution. So this is a kind of everything related to air, water, and soil all are interconnected with each other. If you kind of like produce a waste that can damage to soil, interconnected with water and water, air, everything is all interconnected. Okay? So basically, there are types of effect and sources of soil pollution are the following: as industrial waste, urban waste, agricultural practices, or that waste from agricultural practices, radioactive pollutants, and biological agents. Okay, so industrial waste is basically the disposal of whatever industrial like useless materials that they dump the soil materials, particularly if they dump onto the soil, and that can basically can lead to the soil pollution. The pulp and the paper mills, chemical industries, the oil refineries, sugar factories, manufacturing and construction industries, coal mining industries, chemical, glass, cement, construction, demolition waste, everything is actually contributing to the soil pollution. Affect the soil pardon. Effect basically it alters the chemical and biological activities of the soil. Hazardous chemicals enter into the human and the animal food chains, disturb the biological processes for the living organisms. Urban waste basically that coming from that commercial or the domestic waste in cities or urban areas, from dye, slush, waste as well. So basically, sludge is basically a term which is actually used when you have a lot of wastewater treatment. So that term will be later in the module 3. The constituents are basically garbage or rubbish materials, remains of food, vegetables, garden waste, plastic, fibers, glasses, rubbers, vehicles, so many things, uncountable matters. Agricultural practices, for example, they use a lot of fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, then feedstocks, crop residues, all contribute to the agricultural that soil pollution. The control measures for the soil pollution are the following. So agricultural activities should be properly maintained. It should not be done like an unscientific way. Population growth should be controlled, and urbanization should be a kind of control as well. So you should not convert all the agricultural land into the urbanized area. Okay. Control of soil pollution is basically it is controlled by forestry and the farm practices, for example, tree plantation in the slopes, terracing and building diversions, channel by channel undertaking, reducing the deforestation. So all this actually come into the soil pollution control. proper dumping of unwanted materials. So basically, if you think about it, every day we produce a lot of waste. What are we doing of it? Are you guys disposing properly or just throw here and there? Even the students were eating on the way to your college or somewhere else or traveling to some other cities. You just eat and just throw that plastic can, anything, whatever the container you have there for you, just throw it and there. So that is actually not good. We should all think about all this. Okay? Open dumping methods should be changed. Controlled tipping methods should be followed. Okay, production of natural fertilizers is more important than the artificial fertilizers. Okay, so biofertilizers should be improved or should be more in use than the inorganic fertilizers, and we can also use the animal dung as a composting manure for the agricultural purposes as well. So these are the few things that we can control the particular soil pollution. Public awareness is very important, so all should know what to do, what not. That is what actually lacking in our society. So we don't think about the environment. Whatever we want, we just do it. Okay? So that has to be properly communicated with the people. Okay? Problems of health hazards should be educated to the people. So what exactly could be the consequence of this soil pollution? They should know about this. Recycling and reuse of waste. So basically, try to reuse the things. Don't just use and throw it. Okay? If it's possible to do, just keep it. Don't throw it. Ban the toxic chemicals like DDT and DBAs, they are the pesticides, and these are banned in all the Western countries. But still, in India, is still using all this. So this should be the government should take proper steps to reduce all these uses of all these particular toxic materials. Okay. Human activities, so industrial waste should be properly treated before they dump to that nearby area. Deforestation should be stopped. Cutting, that is what the erosion during soil erosion during the construction, removal of the streamline vegetation, and the poor farming practices. So these are the human activities that actually reduces the soil quality as well. So next topic we are going towards that thermal pollution. So thermal pollution you can effectively, or you can just simply think about we are increasing the global warming, or global warming is one of the reasons for that. Okay? So thermal pollution, the definition is the pollution is due to the emission of excess heat generated by the human activities. It is a common and the addition of water pollution. Adding of excess heat to the water can reduce the reserve oxygen that can kill the species. So probably, I think those who are living in a village nearby pond, they can see that maybe during the summertime, every day morning fish start to float on the water surface. And that is because of the same reason that the oxygen content in the water gets reduced, and you get that the fish doesn't get enough oxygen, so they start floating on top of the water. This is that the heat released to the environment during the generation of electricity in the power plant or any other activities. Okay. Sources of that water pollution, one of the major important is thermal power plants, coal-fired power plants, industrial effluents, domestic sewage, hydroelectric power plants as well. Okay, and electric power plants. So all these things, basically, power plants are the major source of this thermal pollution. Even that nowadays that vehicles, huge number of vehicles can also contribute to the thermal pollution. How the thermal power plant works? So basically, the nuclear explosion experiment, or whatever nuclear reaction is happening in the thermal power plant, heated effluents from the thermal power plant. So basically, that water is to cool down the engines, okay? So that those effluents can actually contaminate or releasing heat all the time, and that can cause thermal pollution. That basically are essentially increase the temperature of the water bodies. Coal for power plant, so basically the condensers, what I was telling, that the thermal power plants are cooled with water from the river and lakes. The discharge of hot water back to them, then increasing the temperature of the water bodies. Okay? And additionally to that, thermal heat also produces a lot of smokes. Okay, that can also cause air pollution. The heated effluent decreases the dissolved oxygen content in the water, and that kills the microorganism in the water. Okay. Industrial effluents, that you can see how the industrial effluents, they are mainly heated water. Okay. Also contain a lot of other chemicals. So basically that can cause both the thermal pollution as well as the situation as well as the chemical water. Domestic soils basically discharge of the water into river, lakes, and the channels without treatment. So the main source of soil water is a high temperature. So sometimes you take soil with hot water. So what is that heat of that hot water? Okay, that hot water should release the heat to the moisture to the atmosphere. Okay, and then you put down. So that heat actually consumed by the atmosphere in some more temperature increase. Okay, and the demand of reserve oxygen increases, and then water organisms will die effectively. Okay, hydroelectric power plant, the negative thermal loading takes place in that, and 8% of 8% more heat is given to the water. Okay, power plant. So all these things, every power plant is actually causing all this heat production. So basically, what happens in the thermal power plant, so water is going through a channel. And there's a huge turbine. The turbine starts rotating. This is a mechanical motion that can also produce a lot of heat, and that heat can be consumed by the water that is coming out, and it can go to the particular next to the water, and then you can see that temperature of the water start to decrease. Human activities, we will discuss about that. Sorry, soil pollution. So we can see that the effect of thermal pollution is very simple. That is the reduction of the reserve oxygen and the increase in the toxicity. So basically, when the temperature increases, the potassium cyanide start forming in the water level, and that is not good for our health. Interference with the biological activity. So basically, the respiratory digestive system will be decreased. The fertility also will be reduced, and they can die out. Okay, that's the very important. Control measures for thermal pollution, the cooling towers. The cooling towers basically designed to reduce the temperature of the water. Okay, so cooling towers spread the heat from the hot water to the surrounding by evaporation. So when the water evaporates, what happens? It actually takes the latent heat and it goes to the air. So basically, the air is also getting hot. Okay, so there are two different ways: the wet cooling tower and the dry cooling tower. So the wet cooling tower basically you have the basin. Okay, so you pump the water and it falls through it. Then it falls through this particular channels, and then there's a air flow will be there. The air will take the moisture along with the heat, and your cold air, water will collect the basin, and then you can pump it to a particular uh, factory or industry, whatever you are using. Dry cooling tower basically is dry air is coming through. Okay, and the hot water is spray over this, and then the hot air with the moisture or hot moisture is going up. Okay, so this is what it is basically how it is working. Cooling pond is basically it's a like if we have seen near the Palan there is a huge lake around the power plant, and they actually discharge the effluent of the hot water in one end, then it's slowly moving throughout the lake and then come to the other end, and then the water actually taken out from there for the use. So during this movement process, because of the huge surface or water surface, it dissipates the energy in the form of latent heat, and that actually cool the air. Spray pond is the same technique, but the process is very fast because you are spraying and the water is small droplet. It can easily dissipate the heat, and that it could be cooled down very quickly. Okay? That is what artificial lake I was telling. So thermal power plant, they have artificial lakes. So they start from one end and taking around for a long time, and then throughout the process, the air goes through, it takes the heat, and then you get the cool water on the other end of the lake. So that is what it is. The next point that we was the radioactive pollutants. So basically, there are radioactive elements such as radium, thorium, uranium. Uranium is basically used for different kind of radioactive the power plant. So that radio power plant we're using. So that produce a lot of energy. And we also have seen radon in the beginning of our course. The radon is also a radioactive gas. Okay. Then iodine 129, strontium 90, nitrogen 15, carbon 14 stress. These all are actually that kind of radioactive elements. Sources are unused spent fuels, waste from the nuclear plant industry, scrap electronic fluids, and medical heat, and radioactive. So basically there are some medical experiments that they need radioactive elements, and that if equipment is just disposed, and then you can get a lot of radioactive particles, and that can cause problems. biological waste, biomedical, and that pathological waste, potentially infectious waste, okay, and particulate pollutants in the air that settle down in the soil. Radioactive pollutants or pollutions is basically any activity that leads to the particular pollution for the that leads to the radioactive pollutants. Basically, radioactive elements they produce a lot of particles like alpha, beta, gamma particles with energy. These are very bad for our health. Okay, so basically the sources of radiations is the nuclear power station, nuclear bomb, nuclear accident, waste from the nuclear power plants, the leakage from the stored radioactive waste. This is one of the biggest challenges for all these radioactive power plant is that how to store all this waste because they cannot store within that plant. So there's a different way or method of storing it. Okay? Sometimes they put it in an open air in a particular tank. Sometimes they put underground, almost 200 meters down to the surface. Okay? So that is a very much down. But it also has a lot of risk because if there is a leakage, it could mix with underground water, and that could be another problem for a wide range of area. Okay? So it can be having coming from radio, TV units, electronic devices, high energy photons and electronics releases, cosmetics and radioactive isotopes. The effect of radioactive pollutions of the body, it can first affect your brain and central nervous system, whereas the eyesight, vomiting, bleeding, mouth ulcers, blood vessel damage and less spots on the skin. Okay. The brain damage is very common over there, EMR from the cell phones and also linked to the brain tumors. All this includes the effect of radioactive pollution. The two important accidents I mentioned already, Chernobyl accidents and the Fukushima nuclear disasters. So these are basically tells us that how lethal and how devastating it is. So we should be very careful whenever we are basically having a nuclear power plant nearby. And that can be very much devastating. Anything happen, whole city will be like gone. So I had a friend from Ukraine and she actually narrated me the story of the Chernobyl disaster. So it was very complicated things. The consequences from nuclear outages, so nuclear tests should not be done on the air. Nuclear tests should be done on the ground. Nuclear reactors should be covered by closed scientific coolant. The production of the radio should be minimized. Nuclear installations should be controlled. Fission reactions should be controlled, and fusion reactions should be done. Because fusion reactions basically you can combine two hydrogen to produce the helium. That's a very good way of producing energy as well. But this is uncontrolled. But there are a lot of research going on that, and we are really working on that to generate that kind of energy from the fusion reaction instead of fission reaction. So current all the electric plants are actually working on the fission reaction. Okay. So nuclear mines formed with underground drainage method to have developed for the safe handling of especially radioactive waste. Uses of nuclear medicines should be minimized. Steps should be taken to prevent the leakage of the radioactive elements from the nuclear reactor. Radioactive waste should be stored in such a place that